We humans tell stories. We have for a long time, as far as we can tell, since the earliest hominids. We tell stories in words, in pictures, in films, on television, in novels and poetry, in endless forms. Our consciousness leads to reflection, which leads to recounting and retelling, all as a way to make meaning and understand our lives. Walter Benjamin, the late 19th and early 20th century German philosopher and literary critic, had this to say about the storyteller in an essay on the work of Nikolai Leskov, a 19th century Russian novelist. Benjamin writes, "The storyteller joins the ranks of the teachers and sages. They have counsel not for a few situations, as the proverb does, but for many, like the sage. For it is granted to the storyteller to reach back to a whole lifetime, a life incidentally that comprises not only their own experience, but no little of the experience of others. What the storyteller knows from hearsay is added to their own. Their gift is the ability to relate their life, their distinctions to be able to tell their entire life. The storyteller is the one who could let the wick of their life be consumed completely by the gentle flame of their story. The storyteller is the figure in which the righteous one encounters themselves." Each of us, I think, has the capacity to be a storyteller, relating wisdom gleaned from a lifetime of experience and observation, each of us allowing the candle of our life to be burned in service of righteousness and teaching and new growth. Inside of each of us is a storyteller. That's a human birthright. We tell so many stories. We tell ones that we know to be true, factual stories about the beginnings of the universe and the evolution of existence. We tell stories about history and the way the world works. We uncover new objective facts that help us refine the stories that help us understand ourselves and our world. And then we tell stories that aren't scientific ones, but ones that are true nonetheless. Myths and legends, epics and novels that teach us about what it means to be human, what it means to feel and love and fight and hate and grow and change. Stories that help us understand ourselves and our world. And then we tell stories to ourselves, about ourselves. Stories that sometimes are aspirational, sometimes are true, sometimes are untrue. Some of those stories help us live well and others harm us. Some we are meant to tell ourselves again and again, and others we need to let go of. Today, we're going to remember and think about and reflect on the power of story in this time of year when all of us become storytellers, recounting tales of millennia that offer magic and meaning to this day. Today, we gather to celebrate the holiness of story. Humans are, so far as we know, the only creatures with the capacity for self-knowledge and reflection, the only ones with the kind of memory, feeling, and awareness of finitude that we possess. Our complex brains allow for the interplay of what was, what is, and what will be all at once. For multiple truths to be held all at once. This question of what is true and what is false and how we know this matters each and every day of our lives. It matters in the news that we read and the stories we consume. It matters in the epic religious tales we teach our children and how we teach them to believe them. And today we begin with how it matters every day in the way we speak to ourselves, especially when we make mistakes, when we look in the mirror, when we fail, also when we succeed. Because I think our storytelling begins inside us with the ways that we remember, the ways that we see ourselves and talk to ourselves and then tell the world about who we are. In spite of our capacity for complex and flexible thought, so often we see ourselves in monochrome, as Leslie Takahashi writes. We tell ourselves limiting stories about who we are. I am smart or not. I am unlucky or not. I am pretty or not. I'm foolish or not. I'm witty or not. I am bad or I am good. I believe this and only this. And we ascribe values to these judgments, these either ors that we use to speak internally and externally about ourselves. These words have so much power. If I tell myself enough that I'm stupid, I'm going to believe it, and I may come to embody it more. If my child tells themselves enough that they're naughty, they will lean into that truth that they have told themselves. We can find ourselves limited by the insidious thoughts that creep in, the rigid thoughts that keep us stuck. And worse, we can bring those into existence, making a reality of these things we affirm over and over inside of us. The words we say to ourselves have power. Repeat it enough, create the memory of the thought enough, create enough neural pathways well trodden, and all of a sudden we've told a story we come to see as absolutely true, definitional even. And then it comes to us unbidden, needling, poking, harming, preventing us from growing and becoming and flourishing. Undoing years of the same self-talk, the same untrue narratives, the same limiting thoughts can be hard, but it can be done. There's a reason we have mantras, a reason that the concept of affirmations exists. We can actually tell ourselves a different story. We can interrupt our thought patterns, give ourselves a new narrative, help ourselves believe something new about ourselves. We can create space for more flexibility, more compassion, more imagination, more belief, more truth. And ultimately, that leads us to more grace offered to ourselves and to others. There are times when we let the words flow inside us and around us without interrogating them, and that's where we go wrong. It is so human to tell ourselves stories and narrate our lives and to come to conclusions about what is and what isn't. But anything that limits, that defines us or another as either or, that prevents us from embracing parts of ourselves or others that are real, those are not stories of worth that help us live well. We have to take the time to discern which stories are holy, serving our good and serving the greater good. We have to interrupt those harmful stories and reinforce the life-giving ones. And so today we're going to practice. That's how we're going to use our meditation time. We're going to practice. Every Sunday, we make this special time inside of our service to be with one another and speak deep truths about our lives. And often we will share the stories of our lives aloud. This morning, we're going to hold those stories in our hearts, knowing that each of us comes to this moment carrying so much, griefs and celebrations, fears and hopes. We're going to hold those right here, and we're going to be present to each other, but we're also going to be present to ourselves and practice. So I'm going to ask you to settle into your space, whether you're here or at home on Zoom. Find as comfortable a position for your body as you can. Take care with your body. And then take a breath. If deep breathing works for you, please do that. If it's better to just breathe your normal breath, stay with that. Do what is comfortable and safe for your body, your being. You can close your eyes if that works. And let yourself come to as much stillness of body, mind, and heart as you can. I'm going to ask you to keep breathing. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Just breathing, still and quiet. And focus on the air. In and out. In and out. Your whole self present. Body, your mind, your heart. If you notice your thoughts wandering or intrusive thoughts trying to push their way in, just bring your focus back to your breath. Tune your ears back to the sound of my voice. As we sit in the quiet and we breathe, I'm going to tell you a story, a narrative, some truths about you, truths that I know and I want you to know with your whole self. No matter what anyone says, even the voices inside of you, this is a true story. You come from stardust, a part of the infinite fabric of existence. You are a being of darkness and of light, grown in the deep ocean of the womb, brought into the light of day, cradled in the dark of night. You contain multitudes. You contain within you promise and possibility. You are life, created and creator. You are enough, just as you are. You are beautiful, just as you are. The love that you give is a gift to cherish. The care that you show can change the world. The words that you speak can inspire and teach. You are a miraculous and holy being. And you are deeply loved in every moment with every breath. The voices that we hear, whether they are our own or someone else's, they can tell us stories that hurt and hold us back, that limit us, when in fact we are full of potential for wholeness and for healing, for justice and for grace. So when those voices come, breathe and let another one rise above them. The one that says loud and clear, I am loved, I am beautiful, I am enough, just me, just me. I am holy. Breathe. If you feel comfortable, bring your hands to your belly or hold one hand with another or give yourself a hug. And then let yourself whisper after me. I am loved. I am beautiful. I am enough. Just me. I am holy. Breathe. Breathe again. All of you is safe here. Here you can learn a new story. Here we can tell each other new truths. And we can carry those words beyond this room, sharing them over and over with ourselves and with every person that we meet. May we remember and retell these new words each and every day, breathing them in and out in every moment. So may it be. There are stories of the winter solstice that tell of two sisters, one of the day light and bright, one of the night dark and mellow. They tell of how the people love the sister of the day, her warmth and the nourishment, and how the people feared the sister of the night, her mystery and depth. Some stories tell how the people chased away the sister of the night, how the sister of the day then ruled over all, and how miserable that was for her and for the people and for the banished sister. The sisters missed one another, and the people missed the quiet, the cool darkness, the possibility for growth in the deep times. The people, having realized their mistake, wished back the sister of the night, and it was when balance was restored, when light and dark worked together, that the people thrived and the sisters rejoiced. These kinds of stories, ones that exist outside of time, outside of human experience in one sense, nonetheless capture something about human experience. They are legends, myths. Maybe they began as the narratives we told before we understood the science behind a particular phenomenon. And yet they are also the narratives we continue to tell, even when we understand the facts of what is happening, because mythology isn't about science and fact. It's about a different kind of truth, a truth of feeling and experience and emotion. Myths speak to how we inhabit this world and also to how we inhabit our own minds. And the best of them encourage us to do this well. The solstice story that teaches of the sisters teaches the truth of the balance between light and dark, a balance we both can't change and need. It speaks to the truth of how we are best served by seeking that balance in ourselves, speaks to the truth of our need for others, the true possibility of loneliness when we attempt to go it alone. The external and the internal truths about all of it exist in these tales we tell. Joseph Campbell, who was a professor of comparative mythology, I'm guessing many of you have heard of, his works on myth and legend became integral theory for generations and impacted popular culture and imagination. In an interview with the LA Times in 1987, he offered that he found it frustrating that many people he encountered interpreted mythology as either a fact or an outright lie, either or. Rather, Campbell said, myths are, quote, a collection of metaphors or an organization of symbolic images and narratives metaphorical of the possibility of human experience and fulfillment in a given culture at a given time. He explains this in relationship to God. I think it's instructive. Theists believe in God as fact and atheists as no God as fact. But Campbell said, and this is a quote, The real position is to realize that the word God is metaphorical of a mystery, and the mystery is beyond all human comprehension. The first thing to know when you're dealing with these symbolic forms is that the ultimate reference is beyond all categories of human thought. He believed that myths were created out of primary human experience with the inexplicable. We make myths and stories to give shape to the ineffable. We make meaning of the mystery with them, to make the comprehensible out of the incomprehensible. We do this when we talk to ourselves, understanding who we are, and we do this when we encounter the world around us. And his point is that the stories don't have to be factual to be true, to be real, to say something important about what it's like to be human. And Campbell would tell us that to take them as absolutely true or as absolutely false, either one, is to miss the point. Rather, we ought to be as the Greeks, as Paul Vane describes them, believing in the myths in a loose sense that exists beyond our real human frames of time and space. Truth in mythic time. Our sacred stories don't need to hold up to facts, they need to hold up to truth and allow for fact. As when we speak of the sun that rises and sets, even as we orbit the sun spinning on our tilted axis. And we have to keep these tales and our interpretation of them nimble, holding them expansively, testing them constantly against our lived experiences, ensuring that they still serve this moment in our culture and our time, serve us and serve the greater good, helping us to live better, helping us to find the balance. Our last reading this morning is from an essay by Ursula K. Le Guin, the science fiction writer. The essay is titled The Carrier Bag Theory of Fiction. She writes, if you haven't got something to put it in, food will escape you, even something as uncombative and unresourceful as an oat. You put as many as you can into your stomach while they are handy, that being the primary container. But what about tomorrow morning when you wake up and it's cold and raining, and wouldn't it be good to just have a few handfuls of oats to chew on? But how do you get more than one stomachful and one handful home? So you get up and go to the damned soggy oat patch in the rain, and wouldn't it be a good thing if you had something to put the baby in so that you could pick the oats with both hands? A leaf, a gourd, a shell, a net, a bag, a sling, a sack, a bottle, a pot, a box, a container, a holder, a recipient. We've all heard about all the sticks and spears and swords, the things to bash and poke and hit with, the long, hard things, but we have not heard about the things to put things in, the container for the thing contained. That is a news story, that is news. And yet old. Before, once you think about it, surely long before the weapon, a late, luxurious, superfluous tool, long before the useful knife and axe, right along with the indispensable whacker, grinder, and digger, for what's the use of digging up a lot of potatoes if you have nothing to lug the ones you can't eat home in? With or before the tool that forces energy outward, we made the tool that brings energy home. It makes sense to me, she writes. I am an adherent of what Elizabeth Fisher calls the carrier bag theory of human evolution. If it is a human thing to do to put something you want because it's useful, edible, or beautiful into a bag or a basket or a bit of rolled bark or leaf or a net woven of your own hair or what have you, and then take it home with you, home being another larger kind of pouch or bag, a container for people. And then later on, you take it out and eat it or share it or store it up for winter in a solider container or put it in the medicine bundle or the shrine or the museum, the holy place, the area that contains what is sacred. And then next day, you probably do much the same again. If to do that is human, if that's what it takes, then I'm a human being after all. Fully, freely, gladly, for the first time. So Ursula Le Guin, the science fiction author, wrote that essay in 1986. In it, she argues that the obsession with the story of the hero, the story of violence and taking and weapons and death, is an obsession that doesn't really serve us. She argues for what is called the carrier bag theory of fiction, named after this carrier bag theory of evolution by Elizabeth Fisher. She writes, with or before the tool that forces energy outward, we made the tool that brings energy home. Stories didn't start with the creation of violence and weapons, and we need not tie our stories to this so-called action and drama. Before that, before those tools, there was another, the vessel, the bag, the net, the carrier. We don't tell stories to wrestle truth to the ground and submit the world to us and our understanding. We tell stories to try and contain what is, hold it in our hands as we are able, all its mystery and complexity and multiplicity. Joseph Campbell's work on the hero, this mythic man of legend who undergoes change and growth as he enacts salvific violence, was grounded in tales from around the globe, and it inspired more tales, among them the Star Wars series. Epic stories, wonderful stories of good and evil, with plenty of what Le Guin calls, quote, the use of long, hard objects for sticking, bashing, and killing. The notion that culture springs forth from these epic myths of danger and rescue makes no space for an entire other aspect of human existence, the one that is about growth and depth and containing, about the womb, about food storage, about the dark and the deep. The stories of this season that we are in right now are stories of that other kind. They are carrier bag stories about balance and the hidden things we do not know. In that essay, The Storyteller, that I mentioned at the beginning of our time, Walter Benjamin bemoans the novel as the death of storytelling. He writes that the earliest symptom of a process whose end is the decline of storytelling is the rise of the novel at the beginning of modern times. What distinguishes the novel from story, he says, is its essential dependence on the book. The dissemination of the novel became possible only with the invention of printing. What can be handed on orally, the wealth of the epic, is of a different kind from what constitutes the stock in trade of the novel. What differentiates the novel from all other forms of prose literature, the fairy tale, the legend, even the novella, is that it neither comes from oral tradition nor goes into it. Benjamin argues that the novel has been slowly killing the epic, the myth, the legend, the story in the grand sense of the storyteller, the tales that Campbell studied, the beliefs of the Greeks and the other ancients. The book, the novel, printed and engaged with in isolation, has diminished these, he claims. But Le Guin would argue, and she does, she says, I differ with all of this. I would go so far as to say that the natural, proper, fitting shape of the novel might be that of a sack, a bag. A book holds words. Words hold things. They bear meanings. A novel is a medicine bundle, holding things in a particular powerful relation to one another and to us. The novel for Le Guin is the story of generation, creation, process, ongoing and even unresolved. It is a container, not a present neatly tied with a bow, but a container for all of it. The heroic myth and legend, the quiet of oat seeds being put in a bag, the internal narrative of well-crafted characters pulled from life and experience. The novel, no matter how fantastical, she would say, operates more on human time than the great stories of the ages. Le Guin knows that the writing of novels, particularly her own field science fiction, is a, quote, strange realism, but that we inhabit together, quote, a strange reality. She says, science fiction properly conceived, like all serious fiction, however funny, is a way of trying to describe what is in fact going on, what people actually do and feel, how people relate to everything else in this vast stack, this belly of the universe, this womb of things to be and tomb of things that were, this unending story. It is, as in all fiction, in it, as in all fiction, there is room enough to keep even humans where we belong, in our place in the scheme of things. There is time enough to gather plenty of wild oats and sow them too, and sing and listen and watch, and still the story isn't over. Still there are seeds to be adhered and room in the bag for stars. The stories don't stop, is what she tells us, and they have to hold all of it, contain for us the possibility and promise of being human, the reality of what our lives are, the epic tales that teach us, the science that shows us what really is, all of it. Meaning is made through story, and I would argue they're both right. It's made through all the different forms of story. The novel, the oral epic handed down, internal narratives. And the trick is to find the good ones, the ones that serve our becoming and the unfolding of what is, the ones that deepen our understandings. Those are the stories that are holy. We will narrate our lives one way or another. We have to test those internal voices against what is good, what is productive, what encourages wholeness. And we will tell our epic tales, each in their season, holding them lightly alongside our deepest beliefs in science and fact, knowing that each contain truths we must learn to live well in this world we share. And we will read and watch and listen and sing our stories, because our stories will hold it all, the sacred and the profane, the extraordinary and the mundane, the golden crowns and the oat seeds. It matters what stories we tell, what words we speak, what truths we share into the world. May we remember that our stories aren't fixed, and we can rewrite our narratives. May we remember that truth comes in many forms and is all around us. And may we remember that our beings, bodies, minds, and spirits contain multitudes. So may it be.